We're honored today to have Mayor Tony Yarborough with us to give us a welcome, and I'm going to just tell you a little bit about Mayor Yarborough. He's the youngest mayor to ever be elected in the city of Jackson, Mississippi. His story is not full of fame and fortune, but serves as an example of dedication, diligence, and belief that we can all influence the world we live in. As a young man growing up in subdivision number 2 in the west side community of Jackson, Mayor Yarborough faced the very same challenges that most of our young people face today. As the only male child of 3, his parents instilled the beliefs of faith, love, and service to all within he and his siblings. With that mentality in mind, Mayor Yarborough worked his way through the Jackson public school system. After completing his studies at Forest Hill High School, he then attended the University of Southern Mississippi in Hattiesburg, where he received a BS in elementary education. Determined to make a difference and follow his passion to teach and empower individuals, Mayor Yarborough found work in the public school system while earning a master's degree from Jackson State University. His career in education, advocacy in the community, and ability to lead became evident to the people of Jackson in 2009 when he was elected as a city councilman for Ward 6. Since that time, he's consistently utilized his education, experiences, and beliefs as a driving force behind his passion for the development of all people. His hard work, determination, and perseverance are key reasons for his successes today. Today, Mayor Yarborough is happily married to Miss Rosalind Neal Yarborough, and they're the proud parents of 3 children, Carmen, Cameron, and Tony Michelle. Please give a warm welcome to Mayor Tony Yarborough.
Thank you, Mr. President. Great day, everybody. Let me take this opportunity, first of all, it's hot in here, but I don't want to step on anybody's religious or non-religious toes, but this heat reminds me to live right. You catch that however you want to catch it. But I was sitting up here and I had some impure thoughts, and as soon as I got in this heat, it reminded me to get right back on the straight and narrow. So I thank God for the heat. Let me welcome each of you to your capital city, Jackson, Mississippi. And I want to be sure that I express to you that it is indeed your capital city. It's your capital city. It's a place where you come and have the opportunity to interact and interface with your legislators. It's an opportunity for you to come and find a place that we've made a very conscious effort to make sure that you're proud of. Despite any occasional hiccups, I want you to know that there is vitality, life, and progress happening in your capital city. The fact that we saw a reduction in crime this past year of 17%. Now, let me say it again, because WLBT won't tell this story. 17%, we've seen a reduction in crime. We finished, and as it relates in terms of violent crimes this past year, we saw 2,000 less crimes this past year than we saw in the previous year. We've seen economic development happening, although we've heard about big boxes leaving. What's not being told is that I participated personally in over 70 ribbon cuttings last year. We've seen about 10 national chains come into the city of Jackson, including Seraphim Solar Panel Company, who has come in and making a $50 million investment, adding over 300 jobs into our community. So I want you to know that your capital city is vibrant, contrary to what you may believe. Thank you. Finally, before I sit down, I gotta just say, Mayor Waldrop, when I got up here, I had to take a double take. But I looked at you and I said, wait a minute, well, he back. But it's good to see you and great to be among all of you, my colleagues, who are working to do a job that at the end of the day, people will rarely pat you on your back and tell you that you're doing a good job. So I want you to know how important it is for me to be in here with you all, just to be able to know that I am not the only person enduring this misery. Finally, if you could do me a favor when you get back to your respective homes, please let everybody know that you left Jackson, Mississippi, and no one threw a brick, bottle, or rock at you.
Come on. I'm glad he said that. I was trying to figure a way to work that in, but I appreciate him just bringing that on out. So, no, that's all right. Yeah, but I appreciate Mayor Yarborough and his leadership in Jackson. At this time, I'm going to invite our Executive Director, Sherry Vizay, to come and give our report. Y'all can give her a hand, too. Thank you.
Thank you, Jimmy, and welcome to our Midwinter Legislative Conference. I'm so excited to see all of you here. How many of you went to the Capitol this morning? Great. We had a great turnout, and this is a kind of a weird year. It's an election year, so we got a lot of new folks. We're in the midst of 2 races that still have to be decided, so a lot of what we normally do at our briefing is hear from our new chairman, but they haven't been named yet. So that hopefully will happen next week. But we had a good meeting. We had some remarks made by our lieutenant governor. We had several legislators there to talk with us. But we appreciate you going to the Capitol because we say all the time that we need our membership to be engaged at the Capitol, to be heavily involved in what's going on during the legislative session. So you can be there to let your voice be heard, to protect our municipal revenue streams from any kind of unfunded mandate. You actually heard the lieutenant governor say this morning that he is opposed to unfunded mandates, so we're going to hold him to that. But we also had a lot of you there meeting your own senators and representatives, and that's what it's all about. You've got some new ones, and you need to start cultivating a relationship with them if you haven't already done that, because when we ask you to make a call, that's who you're going to call. When we send out an alert about some legislation that we're either opposed or promoting, we need you to feel comfortable in calling or emailing or coming, better yet, coming to Jackson and visiting with your legislators. So we appreciate you being there. Just a couple of real quick updates. When you get back to City Hall, if you haven't already seen it, you're going to see the new issue of our magazine that looks like this. We're very proud of this publication. 4 years ago, we decided to create a special issue of our magazine that we would hand deliver to the Capitol when the session started, geared mainly towards some of the new officials that are elected, because we want them to understand, as best we can portray in this publication, the complexities of running municipal government. So in this issue of the magazine, you're going to see articles in here that explain what your revenue streams are. It talks about the challenges you have with some of the unfunded federal mandates in your wastewater treatment facility. There's sections on parks and rec and how important having a good design plan is in your city. There's also several sections that just explain property taxes and ad valorem and how much that you're dependent on those. One of the things we realize about this publication, and there are a lot of words in here, and we don't expect that everybody will sit down and read every word, but when you look through it, we've put some boxes that say, did you know? So we've tried to highlight some of the critical facts that if they don't walk away with anything else, if they see that information, for example, one of them says, did you know that over 77% of sales tax collected by the state is generated in a municipality, yet municipalities only get 18.5% of that back? And that's one of the things we're working on, is to get that diversion increased. So if you talk to your legislator, ask them if they've seen this publication, Cities Mean Business. Somebody asked me the other day, didn't we always mean business? Yes, we've always meant business. We're always serious. But this year we wanted to really emphasize that we mean business about what we're trying to promote at the Capitol, but we also mean business because we're trying to create an environment, or help you create an environment in your city where folks will want to do business and create jobs. So that's very important to us, and we try to make sure that our people at the Capitol understand that. A couple of other real quick updates I want to give you. If you're on the board, you've heard some of this already, so just bear with us. Mayor Cockcroft, President Cockcroft, appointed a utilities committee again. This has been a committee that we haven't had in a few years, but we met yesterday specifically to help the league address or learn about some of the issues that you're dealing with water and sewer federal mandates from EPA. So a group was put together that represents large, medium, and small cities. And we just sat around, and it was sort of a listening session for us, and we heard about some of the horror stories that are going on out there with what you're being told from EPA. The idea is that the league needs to be more engaged and more educated as staff about what you're dealing with, our officers as well. So, we may make a special trip to DC to meet with our congressional staff about those issues. We need to incorporate more education in those issues. One of the things that came up yesterday, Trudy Fisher, who was the former director of DEQ, told us yesterday that one of the things that we need to really lobby for is for the state to appropriate full funding of the state revolving loan fund program, because that's not been fully funded in the last 4 years to make sure we get all of the federal match that's available. So in the last 4 years, there's been federal money left on the table because the legislature did not appropriate enough in the bond bill. So we're going to really push for that. Y'all are going to be hearing more about that. The bond bill is usually something that happens toward the end of the session, but we need to make sure that we try to push to get as much of that in there so we can get more of the federal money available, because some of our smaller cities in the room could maybe fix some of their water issues with a loan from that program. It's very low interest. So we'll keep you informed on that. We also had a strategic planning session last fall ahead of our small town conference. The committee was appointed of all of last year's chairmen, along with the new chairman of each of our committees. We examined 3 key areas: education, communication, and legislative activity. There were a lot of recommendations made in that session, and one of those is our use of technology and how we need to invest more from the league in upgrading our use of technology. We have a small staff, which limits us, but we're also limited by some of the technology we're trying to use. So we're looking at a proposal right now that would upgrade some of what we're doing, which I think will ultimately enable us to be more effective for you. We also looked at some of our legislative activities, trying to maybe help us develop a way for us to tell our story, tell your story better, and for you to tell it better at the local level. So we're working with an ad agency who is going to be developing a campaign of sorts, of mainly print ads, possibly some radio, some Facebook, social media campaigning to help you tell your story better and to help us tell our story better at the legislature. So we got a lot going on at the league. We're very busy, but we're never too busy to help you, so please call us if you have questions, and we'll try to find the answer for you. As part of my update, I also want to bring somebody up to the podium that y'all all know. Gary Friedman with Phelps Dunbar is who I consider to be the best expert in personnel and fair labor law that we utilize at the league. Many of you have sat through some of his classes, and he's got something he needs to share with you that's very important, that's probably going to affect everybody in this room. And there's also a flyer on the resource table if you've not picked it up. So I'm going to let him come up and tell you about this issue that is very critical for you to understand.
Thanks, Sherry, and good afternoon. Every once in a while, there's a change in the law that comes down that's going to have a significant effect on y'all, on employers in general, but what's important for our purposes are municipalities. And there's something coming. It's not final yet. I want to let you know this is not final. However, they expect a final regulation to be issued probably in July to take effect 2 or 3 or 4 months later. This is what we're talking about. Under the Fair Labor Standards Act, the wage hour laws, you can pay people a salary if they're exempt. Almost all of you have employees in your municipality who are exempt. To be exempt, you've got to meet 2 requirements. Number 1, there's a duties test, what they do, but there's also a salary test. You've got to meet the salary test or you can't be exempt, not legally. Right now, that salary test requires the employee to be paid at least $23,660 a year. That's not a great sum of money. However, what is being considered is raising that threshold to $50,440 a year. Let me say that again, $50,440 a year. There are many municipalities probably in this room who don't pay anybody in their city $50,440 a year, and therefore except for elected officials, they won't have anybody, won't be able to exempt anybody. And I assume that many of you have supervisors and others who are paid much less than $50,440 a year, who you're paying a salary to, and you work them more than 40 hours a week, and you just pay them a salary. Well, unless there's a change, and the comment period has already ended, unless there's a change, they won't be exempt anymore, and you're going to have to pay them an hourly rate and time and a half for overtime. I want you to think about that, because you need to start planning ahead of time. I told you this is not final, but I didn't want this to sneak up on y'all and somebody say, we didn't know come July, and this is the first we've heard, because this is going to affect probably have a significant effect on your 2017 budgets. It's also going to have an effect, a significant effect, assuming you want to comply with the law, a significant effect on how you manage your folks. For example, it may be that instead of paying a bunch of overtime, you want to hire another person. There are different ways to address this, but you need to be thinking about it. We'll hopefully summer we can give you more definite information, but we needed to bring this, thought we needed to bring this to your attention now so that you're not blindsided later. Todd Butler, who's with me, and I will be here tonight if you want to talk about it anymore. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. And again, he has a white paper out on the resource table that you need to pick up that explains what he just reviewed with you. And on the resource table, there are many documents you might want to take with you, some good information that we don't have time to address specifically in our meetings, but we want you to have the information to take with you. The last thing that I'd like to do, I'd be remiss if I did not recognize the city of Natchez, that this year is celebrating 300 years of being a city. Most of you know Mayor Butch Brown, who has been working feverishly for the last term to create a year of celebration in Natchez and to create a lot of events, including our small town conference, which will go back to Natchez this fall. But they have a very short video that they'd like to show you promoting the city and some of the special events for this historic celebration for them.
Are there any Natchez folks here today? Yeah. Sort of, huh? No, okay. Well, thank you. Let's see, let me get back. We're going to deviate from the agenda just a little bit. We are proud to have our Secretary of State, Mr. Delbert Hosemann, here, and I'm going to read just a little bit about Secretary Hosemann. Elected in 2007, the Honorable Delbert Hosemann serves as Mississippi's 8th Secretary of State. Secretary Hosemann is committed to serving the public with open and fair government. In the short time since he was elected, he has worked tirelessly to ensure the integrity of Mississippi's vote, ethically manage state lands to guarantee the future of our children, and make our state more business-friendly and attractive for economic development. Secretary Hosemann has long served the citizens of the state of Mississippi. Raised in Warren County, Mississippi, he comes to the position with a background in business and taxation law. He received an undergraduate degree in business from Notre Dame, a law degree from Ole Miss, and a master's of laws in taxation from New York University. He's a former partner of Phelps Dunbar and was selected to the best lawyers in America for 18 consecutive years. Secretary Hosemann also served his country, they left it out, United States. Army, thank you. It just says United States. I hope you're from the United States. They left out the Army part. Sorry, sir. He's married to his wife, Lynn, for 41 years and the proud parents of 3 children, Kristen, Chard, and Mark, and grandchildren, Grace, Nora, Lynn, Carson, and Charlie. Y'all give a warm welcome to Secretary Delbert Hosemann.
Good to see you, Jimmy. If y'all hadn't been to the Natchez Trace Festival that they have in Kosciuszko, Mississippi, you ought to go. It's a neat deal, and it's fun to go to. It's good to see everybody again and be back. I appreciate y'all inviting me to come back. I want you to know this is a lot more pleasant than the Mississippi legislature. And you can tell them I said that, you know. They're driving me crazy already. They won't meet, and they've been there a week, I think. Yes, Governor Scott sworn, and they've been here a week, and so next week they're leaving. They're going to take a week off. You know, so most of you don't get a week off after you've been there 2 weeks, but apparently we do in the legislature, so they're going to go away for a while. We'll miss them while they're gone and happy to have them when they come back. They have a lot of issues this year. I'm going to talk to you about the ones that I'm going to be involved in and that you're going to be involved in. The first thing, when we started our program with Secretary of State, one of the things we wanted to do is communicate about Mississippi and generate business and show off the so many things that we have in Mississippi. So we were hitting 2 million hits on our website when I started 8 years ago. And so we have enlarged the website, we've done certain things. This year we had 10 million hits on the website, 10 million on the Secretary of State's website. And as I built that up 2 years ago, I started with a yellow piece of paper and I wrote down how can we create more emphasis for small businesses to make them competitive. So I wrote that down on a piece of paper, and I started out from there. And what we came up with is y'all business. Each county in Mississippi is analyzed, and we'll get into that a second. And the first thing you do, whenever you do something like this to 10 million people, every state in the Union and every country in the world, except Mongolia, has come on our website. People are looking at us, they're looking at you to come here. So the first thing I did was sell Mississippi. We got a lot to sell. We build the rockets to the moon. We build hundreds of thousands of automobiles every year. We have a great agricultural economy. We have great timber resources. We have energy exporting. We have gaming. We have a wonderful culture that we have in Mississippi. I wanted to sell Mississippi. So the first thing you'll see is Mississippi Facts, and we sold Mississippi. A key part to that is that we can't let anybody else define Mississippi. We need to define it. And then we need to export it to 10 million people just like we're doing here. So when we're thinking about this, we want to define Mississippi positively for each of your communities and then bring it forward. The second thing we did was select a county. Not only did I select every county, but I also selected 21 metropolitan areas. Many of you will be in one of those metropolitan areas. In that particular county, we took a lot of things. This is Mississippi at a glance. This is the first part. You see we did some cool stuff. We put Mississippi in the pictures in the side. Great facts about Mississippi. When we started looking at this, we wanted to go county by county. So what I started with was the census data. This 2010 census data picked up all of that data. How big are you? How many people live there? What's the ethnicity? What's a male, female? A lot of information that the census data provides to us. And we put that into perspective. We then started talking about what's the income level. So as part of the census data, we have all the income. This happens to be Harrison County for y'all. We just picked that particular one. But where are the people who are making money? Where are they living? Where's the commercial part? Where would you want to start a business? If you're going to start a restaurant, where would you start that restaurant? So we broke down in here, out of the census data, we broke down where everybody's living, what their compensation packages are, how those lines draw out in every county, in your county, y'all business. Then we took the third component, sell Mississippi first, get our numbers right for everybody, and the third component is consumer. So I went out and bought consumer data on just thousands of pieces of information. This is an example here of what you could have or that's available on the website. And it talks about how many people went to a movie. You want to know how many people went to a movie in your town? How many people used an ATM machine? How many people have a home mortgage in your town? All of that information is there. Can I have the next one, please, ma'am? Then we went down into retail products. How many people own an iPad? So you want to communicate from your city or your county, how do you communicate with them? Electronically anymore? You should be, because I'll tell you how many people have access to the internet in your county and where they are, and whether they have an iPad or a cell phone. How many of them use those? And it goes into just huge amounts of data about your county. And that's given to you so that small businesses will be able to compete just like Walmart. This is the same thing Walmart has. They know whether you buy a bottle of water or not, how many TV sets were sold, how many cars were sold. Did people buy cars in your county or in your county? It's all in here. So you can look at all of the statistical data, and small and medium-sized businesses in Mississippi can compete. Because I know if they have the knowledge in your county, they can compete with anybody, just like we can in Mississippi. So when we give them this knowledge, they will be able to sell more, make a good financial decision. And that may mean that they don't start a business and lose a lot of money, or it may mean they start a business and make a lot of money. But once they have that information, they have the financial data necessary to make a business financial decision. No other state has this. People have called, how did you do that? I told them, call me back in a few years, I'll tell you. We're so far ahead, y'all, of anybody else that's got this. One of our community development individuals from North Mississippi called me and he said, I had a business development prospect call me. And he said, I want to know how many people are there. I want to know how many hospitals you got, how many primary care you got, what the traffic count is. We want to know how many people, what the income level is, what the schools are, how the schools rank and everything. He said, that normally take me a month or 2 months to get it all together. He said, I'll send it to him the same day. Here it is. Everything's lined out for you. Go to y'all business. I picked it out for him. We can compete faster and quicker. Where people have knowledge about where they're going, we can get them to come here faster and quicker. Y'all business should be used by every county and every city. Sell yourself. Also, compare yourself. You know, my education is great, but my transportation's not any good. We need to improve our transportation. You know, this is this. So you've got all of these things. You can look at the other counties and see how they're doing. We'll even compare where you'll be in the year 2020. I'll tell you how many people are going to live there, what your growth will be, what your income level will be in 5 years from now. So it's so critical, I think, once we have this knowledge available to you just over the internet for free, just tap it in and it's there for you. And then you need to share it with your businesses in the local area. Critical part of Mississippi going forward is y'all business, and it's on the website. Next one, please, ma'am. To complement that, when I came on, our business laws, y'all, were abysmal. You know, we were archaic and behind everybody. I've rewritten every one of them. Now we have the best business laws in the country here. We're the only Secretary of State in the country that is fully automated. I don't take paper. I hadn't taken paper in over a year. If you want to get on my website, you can do everything you want. File an LLC for $50, renew the annual fee for $0. We have the lowest filing fees in the country, the most automated Secretary of State in the country, the lowest filing fees in the country. As part of that, when we rewrote all of the limited liability company laws, LLCs, you hear them talk about, we started watching this growth in LLCs. This last year, we started in Mississippi 16,000 new small businesses as LLCs, 16,000 of them. over 1,000 a month being formed, and I can tell you where they're being formed. As part of that, 70 to 80% of them now are not formed by lawyers. That's a good thing. Where is Friedman? Has he left already? Lawyers aren't doing this. People are doing it. The regular mom and pop starting that restaurant, that heating and cooling, air conditioning place, whatever they're doing, small engine repair, they're starting in an LLC because there's no tax at an LLC level and you have limited liability. There's no liability for personal obligations there. People are really, really, really moving to that part of the LLC. This now, I've introduced last week, called Mississippi Boss. If you go on there and answer a few questions, it'll tell you who you got to register with, what kind of fee, how to get a social security number or a federal ID number. It will tell you what license you have to have. It tells you everything when you start your LLC. It tells you everything you need is free. Because I wanted, and we got a couple of really good comments and positive comments about this new website. If you're just starting a business, send them to Mississippi Business. They answer 5 quick questions. They'll come out there. What do you got to do, where you got to do it, how you file it, who to contact in your county. You take that in your all business, and our people are so far ahead, it's not even funny. We are so far ahead of everybody else in the country by doing this. Nobody else has something like this. Between your all business and this, I can start you from ground zero, figure out what entity you ought to be, what you got to file with, then I can give you the information to compete with. Very, very critical. Share it with the people in your county. Who's next here, honey? This shows you what I was telling you before, and it's interesting for lawyers and others, but you see the yellow is business corporations. They pretty much stayed the same. You can see all the way across the map. Limited liability companies, back in 2008, we were forming about 10,000. This year's 16,000. Great growth. Corporations are actually down about 800. Tell your people they can go on Mississippi Boss, figure out an LLC, file it for $50. They're in business, ready to go, and I'll already enlist it on all the things they need to do to start business. And they can go to y'all business, and they can figure out how they can compete on selling water or TVs or cars or anything else they do. Next one, please, ma'am. This is so important. Thomas Jefferson, in his wisdom, left the 16th section out of 36 sections in every county for education, solely for education. Schools are built on it. Some of your public parks and things are built on it. When I started, we got $50 million a year from 16th section land. And that's money that comes in from surface rentals, oil and gas, timber sales, commercial. We have shopping centers, Highway 49 and I-10 in Harrison County. That's 16th section land, all the outlet malls and everything. Every year we have worked. We started with requiring my signature on every lease. I have signed over 3,000 of them. And every time we do, we put them all on the website. All the leases are on the website. There's no more dollar a year stuff out here. We don't tolerate that any longer. When people bid on timber, it's all lined out by the county what the timber bids were. All of the rentals are on there. Somebody's paying $1 for a deer lease, he's probably not paying enough. You can see what everybody else is paying. As we've gone through that, this year we'll break $100 million. It's up $50 million a year. For those of you from Columbus to Tunica and north, you all sold all of your 16th section land because it came after the Chickasaw cession, after we got the land from the Chickasaws. It didn't have the same rights to keep every 16th of those 36 sections, so you sold yours. Apparently some of that money was invested in Confederate Railroad bonds. Those are not matured, so we're short. So the legislature in a litigation decided that they would match what you're doing in the other 62 counties. If you're in DeSoto, Lee, DeSoto, Lee, Itawamba, Alcorn, Benton, Marshall, Union, a number of those counties, you get a lieu payment. And in that lieu payment, that is the same as you would have if you shared in the average rate of return on the other 62 counties. This year, it's $25 million because it goes up as the rest of it goes up. So if you're from DeSoto County, when I started, you were getting $2.3 million in lieu payments. This year, your check for your schools is $5.3 million. $3 million, over 100% more in just the last 8 years. Now, every year, somebody tries to screw with this. Every single year. They try to either take it away, they want to give a favorable deal, they want to take the mineral rights away and give it to a corporation that's going to put a plant there. So let's just give away the future of our children, because everybody knows who would think that those mineral rights may be worth something someday. In the private sector, all the mineral rights are retained by anybody conveying land. They don't give them away. But the state of Mississippi wants to give them away, and you'll see that again. And you'll see people tinkering with your $100 million. And you'll see them edging around. Let's do a little better deal on timber. Let's do a little better deal on hunting rights. You know, Joe hunts out there, and he's a friend of mine. We really shouldn't have to pay that much. Let's take the mineral rights for the new plant. That'd be a great idea. Let's just give them that. Every time they do that, they mortgage the future of your children and your grandchildren. When you see that come up this year, call every person in your legislative group and tell them to stop. Don't do that, because it's worth $100 million to your children every year. I promise you, I've already had one legislature come up to me, you know, I got this thing I got to introduce. No, you don't. Pay attention. This is for the future of the children. Next one. I have been to Forest, Hines, Greenville, Washington, Meridian, Carolyn, Game, Greenwood, selling tax forfeited properties. We've got an epidemic. We have 14,000 of them. I sold almost 1,000 last year at auction. I will come to your town. If you've got tax forfeited properties and I can put it in a public use, I'll do that. We just had a request for, which we will approve, for a fire station off of tax forfeited properties. We will donate that to the city. The legislature gives me authority to do that. We'll donate that to the city for a fire station. Tax forfeited properties mean they've already passed 3 years before I ever got them, before the state ever got them. We continue to get a couple of thousand. During the real estate debacle, we got thousands and thousands of these. I am desperately trying to sell them, put them back on the market. I can sell them as low as 10% on appraised value. I'll make you a deal. I promise. If you want us to come auction, we will come auction. We do them for, I think one we did in Vicksburg at Warren County was about 60 parcels, and I think we sold about 35 or 40 of them. And we probably got about $35,000, $40,000, all went back to the city and the county. And then the good news is, of course, they're back on the tax rolls. People start paying for them again. They clean up the lot. You don't have to go cut the grass. All the things, you know what the expenses are. If you'll call me, I will come. We're happy to do that. We will work with the city or the county in identifying the parcels. We'll put them up for public auction. We'll pay for the newspaper ad. We'll then pick up all the stuff. It's online. People can file online. We'll go through all of that stuff, and we'll bring you a check for everything we sell. So please call us. We want to help. And we're trying really hard to sell these, but I will tell you, I have more coming in than I'm selling. But it's not because we're not trying. Okay, tax forfeited, and let's see. Is there anything else on this? That's good, because I think I'm out of time. Last thing I'm going to do, and I'll be very short with y'all. Mississippi is the only state in the country since I was hired in 2008 that's won every voting rights case and not been sued over voter ID. You're it. We started by the legislature arguing whether or not they could redistrict, but the then governor said no, we wanted the federal courts to redistrict. I went to the Supreme Court, we won there twice. We had, as recently as the last Cochran-Daniel race in the Republicans, they wanted everybody's name and address, which would allow them to get your Social Security number. We objected to that, and we won it in federal court. We have one in the Fifth Circuit and Federal District Court and at the Supreme Court, every one of them. We're the only state in the country to implement voter ID that did not get sued by the Justice Department. Quite an accomplishment for Mississippi when you think of our history and how we have turned that page now. So I've taken that and I have rewritten the entire election code this year. It's 380 pages long. I recommend you not read it. I have a summary. That'd be better. Don't read all that. The salient points that you'll see that'll come out. First of all, it's time for Mississippi to start pre-election voting. We need to have people start voting 21 days out before the election. We have ice storms. Seniors can't get out. You know, people go out of town. We're traveling a lot. We work outside. We work offshore. 21 days before, we need to start casting our ballots in the circuit clerk's office with an ID. We need to allow people to register online. We've got bloated voter rolls. When I started, there were 29 counties that had more voter rolls on the voter rolls than were alive in them. So we're down to 5 now, and 2 of those under a federal court order. We're working through all of that. You have to send out hundreds of pieces of mail to people that don't even live there anymore. We need to do that. We need to have our criminal provisions have some bite in them. If they're going to steal your ballot box or pay somebody for a vote, I want them prosecuted. We've only had one DA really prosecute. Now we have put together all of the criminal provisions in one easy way, and we had 3 DAs write those particular provisions. Some really, really, really good things about the Mississippi Election Code that you'll be seeing. We'll introduce next week. I'll be putting a summary up on our website. I encourage you to read it. I'll get it to Sherry and she can send it out to y'all. I'll be out and around on the coast, south and on the coast on Tuesday, north, Columbus, Tupelo, Hernando and area on Thursday, holding press conferences starting to generate up about a massive election reform package. First time since 1890, since we've done that. The last part of that, and I'll close, some of you may have received, as part of the election reform package, some of you may have received mail-outs. These mail-outs come from unscrupulous individuals who can charge just about anything. One of them, we had a knife standing over a lady, and another one we had puppets, but they won't tell you who sends it out. They won't tell you that. You're an elected official. So the last batch that comes out, the way they do this is 10 days before you have to file if you're spending money. So they wait until the Friday before and drop that mail piece on you. And they can accuse you of everything from being a pedophile to whatever. And then they file showing zeros. So after they did this the last time, I got a subpoena to find out from the company that did the mail out who paid for that. If you're going to say those kinds of things, you need to stand up next to me in church and tell you I said that. We have a right to free speech in Mississippi, but we don't have a right to ambush, because each of you can get ambushed by these people dropping this stuff and no recourse. So we've changed the law in this, and on that case, by the way, they sued me, and it's called Anonymous versus Hoseman. Rick, I have to tell you, I didn't know they could do that. So they sued me anonymously. We had a trial scheduled for December. They didn't do that. They postponed it off till March, and so the trial will be in March. And as soon as I find out who Anonymous is, I'm going to run all over the state of Mississippi and tell you. We have to be so careful about, why would you run for an office? Can you imagine that lady coming home, sitting down with her husband and saying, I'm going to run for mayor. I'm going to run for the Board of Supervisors. And he says, honey, they're going to drop all these mails on you, say you don't go to church or whatever they say. There's no recourse. People can just say that stuff about you on electronic media as well as a mail. It thwarts the process of getting good people to run for anything. So if they raise or spend $200, they have to tell me within 48 hours, and I have a writ of mandamus to go get their records, because I want them to stand up in front of you and say, I did that. So there's a lot going on in the election law part of it. I think it's all good stuff. You know, my Democrat friends are going to like some of it, and my Republican friends are going to like some of it, and they're not going to like some other parts of it, which probably means it's good legislation. So y'all hang with me, and I appreciate your support. It's a real critical way to move steps forward for when you get elected again. Y'all do great work. I really appreciate y'all having a chance, giving me a chance to come and speak to you. Call me at any time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. This time, we're going to call up Miss Patty, y'all may not recognize her, Patty Pettit, formerly Patty Watkins. Patty informed us at the board meeting she got married in November, so I said, I'm so sorry, but congratulations. So Patty, right for our youth committee report.
Okay, I was charged with being the youth council chair this year. For everybody that's in here that has a youth council in their town, would you please stand up if you have a youth council in your town? For all of y'all that are sitting down, you need to look around and you need to get with one of these people and try to get a youth council started in your town. We may not can do a lot over at the Capitol building. We can't fix all our problems, but we can make a life and a change in some of the kids' lives that live in our towns. But the statewide youth council is going to be February the 26th and 27th in Starkville. I hope each and every one of y'all will be able to come. On Friday night, there will be a kickoff. It's going to be hosted by the city of Starkville, the city of Columbus. The keynote speaker will be Mr. Jim Cook, and I think a bunch of y'all have heard him speak in the past. I think it would be excellent for all of our youth to be able to hear him and to be motivated by him. The service project is going to be with the Humane Society, Starkville Humane Society. And due to the fact that my son goes to Starkville and adopts every other dog they have over there, y'all please bring some supplies so that all those dogs don't have to come to Woodland, please. So everybody please try to come. Again, the dates are February the 26th and 27th in Starkville. Try to get your group together and everybody come and let's make a change in some of the kids' lives that are in our communities. Thank you.
Okay, Patty, it's $20 per student, right? $25 per student. They get breakfast, lunch, T-shirts. So if you don't have a youth council and you have some kids that you think might be interested, it's well worth the $25 for them. This time we're going to have a legislative update from Mayor Alton Shaw.
Thank you again, Jimmy, for allowing me to give this speech for I think the fourth time in the last couple of days. Just kind of talk to you about a few of the priorities we have this year. One of them we're coming back with is the debt set-off. And if you remember last year, it wasn't specifically our bill that made it through, but it passed out of committee, it came out of the House. It was held on a motion to reconsider because they were worried about some of the due process. If you read through our bill, it has plenty of due process. That's not an issue. So we've talked to some of the people that had issues before, explained what was going on. They've read through our bill. I think we can garner the support to get a lot more motion with it this year and hopefully get it on through. And just to put what that means, you know, like take a small town like Wesson, we've got over $400,000 in outstanding police fines. I think the city of Hattiesburg has a little over $20 million. And the reason I think these numbers are important is because you need to stress to your legislatures that they get a little over half of everything we collect. So it is very imperative to them to be willing to work with us on collecting these fines because it's money into their coffers as well. We're also, with MEC, with their support of trying to do more for roads and get funding into that, support them on that aspect to see if we can help ourselves out at the same time. The Small Municipalities Grant, try and get that up to $10 million. And as I told the board of directors meeting earlier, I said, you know, if you looked at it and you took the debt set off and the sales tax collections, they could just take the money they make from that and fund their small municipalities and not have to come out anything else. Also, to fully reimburse for our homestead exemption. It's been 100% a few times, but not very often, so still push for that. It was mentioned earlier, one of the things are sales tax diversions. You know, it's been 18.5% for years. And to try and get that back up a little bit, because at one time it was over 20%, and to work with them on that. And there's been some conversation about some bills that may be going in, but we haven't seen those to really know to talk about them just yet. And then the last thing is just permission to be able to do something that we currently can't do, and that's dealing with economic development as far as donation or some type of decreased lease structure for economic development. Counties currently have this authority, but that is not an authority municipalities have. Last month when I was talking with the director of MDA and was explaining this to him, he says, I didn't realize y'all couldn't do that. So I think that hopefully will be a low-key bill. It's not going to cost the legislature anything, but it'll open up another tool in our arsenal to be able to do some economic development for different for-profit industries. So I appreciate that, and as always, it is imperative that you stay involved. If you hear or see anything related to municipalities, anything that you may affect municipalities, please pick up the phone, give a call, shoot out an email or something. Don't assume that we know about what's going on, because there are tons of bills that go out there. We're going to spend, this is what we're wanting to accomplish on a proactive standpoint. Once things get generated, we're going to spend a lot of time trying to stop things from hurting us. But the only way we know about some of those things is if you tell us. We've got Trey and Chris them that look over it and try and make sure they stay on top of it. But again, just the pure volume. There are sometimes things to get through. So if you see or hear of anything, please do that. And the next thing is, make sure you stay in touch with your senators and representatives. I know mine, but if I go up to, if I go up to Brandon and try and talk to them, they could care less what I say. If the mayor there calls them, then they'll pay a little attention. Get to know them, especially if you turn out and are lucky enough to have one of the chairmen in your district. But we will be calling on you. Voter voice was very important last year, helped pass some legislation that probably would not have passed without your support. So please stay active, please stay involved. If there's anything we can do or any issues you have that come up, please give us a call. Thank you.
Thank you, Alton. Okay, at this time, we're going to hear from Dr. Joe Fratesi with the Mississippi State University Stennis Institute of Government. Is that right? That may not be the right name anymore.
That's pretty good. Thank you. That's good. Thank you, Jimmy. Good afternoon. How are you? Everyone's good. Is it warm enough in here for everybody? Judging by the fans I saw going and looking at my clock, I can tell we've been in here. I got excited. I could tell we've been in here for about an hour or so, and everyone's a little hot. So I told Sherry for my 3-hour talk, what we'll do is focus on something different. But in all seriousness, I want to start off by thanking all of you, first of all, for letting me be here today, and also for everything that you do. With the work that I get to do at the Stennis Institute, I consider it very much an honor and a privilege to get to help other people. I think that's one of the most rewarding things any of us get to do, is try to help other people, and that's what all of y'all do. And the fact that through the years, y'all have allowed me to come to your communities, and I've been to a lot of them to try and help you, I consider that a privilege. So I want to thank you for that. Because helping people is really kind of at the heart of what we're trying to do at the Stennis Institute. How can we help you as elected officials address some of the challenges and issues that you're facing in your community? And y'all see them all the time. We've heard about some of them today. We talk about things like increasing economic prosperity in our communities. How do we reduce crime? How do we address declining infrastructure? How do we get more citizens engaged in our community? So there's some very serious challenges that you're looking at facing, and we always struggle with how can we find the best way to provide you some help and assistance. Well, starting about 2 years ago, the Stennis Institute at Mississippi State partnered with the Mississippi Municipal League to develop what I think is a very exciting and new educational and assistance opportunity. We call it the Mayor's Forum. In March of this past year, we held our forum where we selected 6 mayors from throughout the state based off whether you're in the northern, central, or southern districts, and we invited you to come participate in our first Mayor's Forum. As part of that, what we wanted to do is kind of get beyond some of the broader discussions we have at meetings or conferences where we're trying to address issues with communities as large as Jackson and maybe as small as Woodland. You know, they're not the same size, and so when you work in the bigger groups, it was kind of hard to really hone in on specific issues. So we said, well, let's set up a program where we can bring in a select group of mayors to prevent very specific, very real-world challenges that they're facing in their community to a panel of people that they don't normally have on their staff. Most communities in Mississippi don't have, and in this case we're focusing on planning and design challenges, don't have an urban planner. They don't have an architect. They may not have a full-time developer or landscape architect that you can bounce ideas off of and work through some of your projects. So we said, well, let's go ahead and put together an opportunity where these mayors can present very specific challenges to this group and not only discuss it, but really work through debates and discussions to come up with very practical solutions that you can go and start implementing. And we held the first forum this past year. We had 6 mayors, and the impact of the forum was felt immediately. Mayors that left the first forum we're able to take some of those solutions and go back and start implementing them right away to address some of those challenges. I've got a very brief video that we want to show you to let you see a little bit about the program and hear from the past participants in their own words what they thought about it.
Today's forum is to bring together Mississippi mayors from across the state. We're hoping that mayors will come in here today with certain specific problems. And after talking through that with these experts, they go back to their communities with a renewed interest, with some thoughts of how to get things started, and then share that not just with their community, but benchmark that with other mayors throughout the state.
What better ways to deal with the problems than to bring a group of mayors together and experts and discuss ways that we can improve the things that's going on in our cities?
I had the opportunity to sit down with experts and actually solve problems. Not just talk about problems, but solve problems. By the end of the presentation, I was almost at a loss for words, saying, well, I don't know why I thought that in the first place, because my opinion changed almost 180 degrees. What I saw as a problem, now as an opportunity, something to build upon rather than to tear down.
That's what this is all about, is to change the way these mayors think and look at issues and look at problems and find ways to solve, to take the opportunities that they have and the resources that they have and do something with it.
They are in the business of taking cities and it's making a better Mississippi.
As you can see, we're very excited about the program and the start that it's off to. This year, in 2016, we're going to be holding our second Mayor's Forum, and it's scheduled for March. We're again going to be selecting 6 mayors from throughout Mississippi and focusing on planning and designing challenges that they're facing. In September, this past September, requests to participate were sent out to mayors across the state, and we were really pleased with the response that we got back based off the number of applicants that came in. We formed a selection committee that made up of staff members of both the Mississippi Municipal League, the Stennis Institute, as well as Municipal League board members to go through those applications and select the 6 mayors that would participate for this year. So I'm pleased to use this opportunity to announce that the following mayors have been selected to participate in the 2016 Mayor's Forum. So Mayor, as I call your name, I hope you're all here. If you could stand up and just remain standing so we can all recognize you. From the Northern District, from Holly Springs, Mississippi, Mayor Kelvin Buck. And from Saltillo, Mississippi, Mayor Rex Smith. From the Central District, it will be from Indianola, Mayor Steve Rosenthal. And Mayor Sally Garland. And from the Southern District, it'll be Mayor Brad Niecase. And Mayor Eddie Fulton from Quitman. So once again, please give him a round of applause. I'd like to thank every mayor who applied to participate. Please know it's not an easy time when you get a lot of applications in to kind of go through and select it. So please know we appreciate your participation, and we look forward to working with you if it's not on the Mayor's Forum, on some other program that we're working on to try and help y'all. I would like to take this moment to specifically thank Knox, if he is here. He's in the back. Knox Ross, who actually was a driving force behind this. He's been talking with me about this program for years and really helped me kind of bring this forward and do it. And obviously, Sherry and Robbie here with the Mississippi Municipal League for partnering with us to not only create it, but keep it going this year. So we appreciate that, and we appreciate just having the opportunity to help each of you. Of course, as you know, if y'all have any questions, not just with stuff like the with the Mayor's Forum, but anything that we can do to help at the Stennis Institute, please feel free to call us. So I appreciate that, and I would ask mayors when we get done here in a little bit, if you could stick around up front, we're going to take a real quick photo. So I appreciate it, and thank you again.
Appreciate it. Thanks so much, Dr. Fatizzi, and congratulations to the 6 of y'all. That's an energetic, vibrant group. So Sally, you keep these guys straight. So, okay, we have one last speaker this afternoon. We're privileged to have Scott Waller from MEC with us. Scott is the Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer of the Mississippi Economic Council. He has refined and deployed a comprehensive advocacy plan by by building strong relationships with members of the Mississippi Legislature and bolstering involvement among MEC's membership. Scott has worked to build coalitions and strengthen alliances between MEC members and other organizations to make the Chamber a policy leader on key issues of economic development, education, workforce training, taxes, tourism, and business climate. Prior to joining MEC, he has spent more than 20 years as a newspaper journalist, including 4 years as business editor of the Clarion Ledger. He's a graduate of Mississippi State University and has completed the respected Institute for Organization Management program, an intensive 4-year nonprofit leadership training program conducted by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. He and his wife, Kim, reside in Madison, are active at St. Matthew's United Methodist Church, and are proud parents of one son, Shane, a student at Mississippi State University. Y'all please give a good warm welcome to Scott Waller.
Thank you, Mayor. It is a privilege to be here. I will tell you, this process started about a year and a half ago, and we were trying to figure out how are we going to get the information we're going to need to make people understand there's a real problem with our transportation infrastructure. And I will tell you, when it came to the local level, and especially the cities, that we could not have done it without your help. In fact, Sherry was so instrumental in making sure that that information was gotten to us to allow us to really have the ability to go out, talk about what the problem is, and do it. And we could not have done it without y'all responding to the survey. In fact, I was talking with Troy Johnson. Troy and I, we didn't grow up together, but we grew up in the same place, a little bitty town over in east central Mississippi called Shubuta. I will always have fond memories there because it's really a great place. Mayor went to high school in Quitman, still get home occasionally. But you know, having the background of being able to travel across the state, it's easier for me to understand some of the issues that exist with small towns because I grew up in one. And a lot of times the information that we have to be able to have is not readily available if you don't take the time to get it to us. So while they're getting the PowerPoint set up, I just wanted to take a couple of minutes to tell you how much I appreciate all of the things that you did to really help us get through that process, through the things that we needed to do in order to get this done. So actually what I'm going to do this morning, Christy Kilroy of our staff, who is the Vice President of Policy, Research, and Member Engagement, was extremely involved in helping gather this data, work with the research teams to put this together. Now, we had a lot of different people that were involved. In addition to the task force that Sherry served on, which had 12 business leaders and 10 community resource members, we really had to depend on a lot of people sending us information. Mississippi State University, the Stennis Institute of Government, they did the policy side of it. University of Southern Mississippi, the Center for Logistics, Trade, and Transportation, they did the actual number crunching on the roads and bridges that, with everything except for the local roads. And then we had two other projects. We had the Mississippi State Industrial Engineering System Department and the CAF Center working on our multimodal, how the railroads, airports, and all fit into it. And then at the end of the day, we had an independent research firm, Cambridge Systematics, that came in and looked at all of it to give us a little bit of a overview to make sure that we didn't have anything out there that didn't quite mesh and didn't quite work. So, looks like we got a little, you know, technology's wonderful when it works, right? But it looks like we're not. So, but anyway. Well, what we'll do is we'll just kind of go through. We may not be able to show you the numbers. Christy, we've got the printout. Why don't we go through it? I'm going to let Christy kind of walk through some of the numbers and some of the things that we learned in our research, and then I'm going to kind of come back and finish up and talk about what's next, how do we get to the next step, and what it means for everybody. Christy?
Thanks, Scott. Well, good afternoon. Sorry the PowerPoint isn't working. You know, my husband is in the tech business, and he always has a motto. He said, you know, you can test something, but if you do a demo, you'll lose the sale. But we have a lot of good things to tell you today. As Scott said, I am Christy Kilroy. I've been working on this project since June of 2014. That's when MEC and their blueprint efforts decided to tackle transportation. If anybody's familiar with Blueprint, it started in 2004 and was redone in 2011. It is our map, if you will, of the projects that we need to take on as a state to move Mississippi forward to be as competitive as we can be. There are several categories within Blueprint. They range from everything from education to technology to transportation. We take them one at a time and we really dig in and look at them. Of course, today we're here to talk to you about transportation. In order to do this, we formed a task force. This was a group of business leaders around the state, as well as some other stakeholders. Sherry is one of those, and we appreciate her being in that group. We kicked this off in June of 14, as I said. We did a stakeholders meeting soon thereafter, and we had a bunch of individuals. We invited our entire membership. We had a bunch of individuals in a room in which we polled them at that very moment. If you've been to an MEC event, you may have participated in that instant polling. 80% of those individuals that were in the room that were stakeholders in transportation and had a concern about transportation said that roadways and bridges were their most important priority when it came to transportation. I would imagine a lot of you in here have that same concern. Any luck? Okay. Also, when we asked them what their most pressing concern was, they said 83% said maintenance in existing roadways and bridge repair and replacement was a big concern for them. So rather than new capacity, new roads, just taking care of those things, those roads and bridges that we already have and that we've already invested in. And so we focused on that. The task force takes the information we receive from our members and individuals like you and puts that into our research. I think Scott mentioned as I was scrambling with the computer that we were able to work with some incredible researchers around the state. University of Southern Mississippi, Mississippi State University, and their Stennis Institute for Government, and also on the public side, Cambridge Systematics, a group out of Atlanta, Georgia that does work all around the country in transportation, helped us in compiling this information. Oh, she got it. Anyway, I'll continue and just let me know, Samantha, if you get that up. Let me tell you that some of the information we gathered was just interesting, and I think you'll find out. I want to share some of the numbers with you. We looked at, okay, if you could forward a few slides, please. So that's all we only missed 2 slides. Not too bad. Nope, we're good, right here. And would you mind forwarding those for me when I get to the next slide? Just stay right there for now, I'll let you know. Thank you. State bridge conditions that we have. You can see that 900, I don't know if you can read that, 935 bridges, state-owned bridges, are either posted, structurally deficient, or functionally obsolete. County bridge conditions, 2,716 bridges are in those categories. And municipal bridge conditions, 273 bridges you guys are dealing with that are either structurally deficient, functionally obsolete, or posted. This was rather easy information to obtain. As you know, the federal government requires that we inspect all bridges 19 feet or less on an annual basis. So that information was pretty easy to get, and we were able to report on that fairly easily. So that's where our bridges are. If you'll, next slide, please. We also had to look at pavement conditions and where that pavement was today and what our needs were in pavement. State pavement over 27,000 miles. If you can read this chart, you can see that 17,181 of our miles on the state system need preventive maintenance, 6,094 miles need minor rehabilitation, and 1,316 need some type of major rehabilitation across the state, and those are projects that MDOT works on. Next slide, please. County pavement conditions. Scott mentioned this in his comments. County and municipal pavement was something that, because there's not one system to collect that information, and not all municipalities, not all counties are reporting through the same system, was really difficult really difficult to obtain. We needed a place to start. We needed to be able to say, if we want to raise money to help support our roads and bridges and our maintenance going forward, we really need to know what the problem is, but this was a very difficult task. And so we went to work with the Association of Supervisors and with Sherry's team here, and we're able to, on the county side, have 77 of 82 counties reported their road conditions to us. And they didn't just report based on what they thought. We actually sent them the same standards that MDOT uses, and they were able to rate their road miles based on those same standards. We sent them photographs, and we did the same thing with the engineers, with the counties and the city. So on the counties, you can see that of 51,891 county miles, you've got about, what does that add up to? 75%, 76% are either in fair condition, poor condition, or very poor condition. So those are the miles that need some attention going forward. So 75%. Interestingly enough, if you'll switch to the next slide, please, municipal pavement conditions, thanks to the information that Sherry and her team was able to send us of the 11,000 plus miles you're dealing with, about the same percentage, 26% were only in fair condition, poor, or very poor condition. About the same spread, 25% of the roads in municipalities, you told us, were in very poor condition. And so that was a huge part, as I mentioned, of our research here and being able to see where the counties and where the municipalities stood as far as their needs around transportation. I think I wanted to present that to you today, and just so you know some of the background of where we got our numbers and how we reached our numbers, I'm going to turn this back over to Scott Waller. He's going to talk about a very important part of this, and that's today's funding landscape. So he's going to take it from here. Scott?
Go back to that slide one more time, if you would. If you'll see at the note at the bottom, 278 out of the 300 cities responded. That is why we had numbers that we could present in a way that was extremely valid. It didn't matter if I used every one of the surveys, if I did a sampling of the surveys, statistically, the numbers stayed intact. And that's what allowed us to, with certainty, be able to go over and say, there are 25% of the roads in the cities across this state that are in very poor condition today, and we have to be doing something about it. And that's one of the reasons that as we go forward, we got to make sure that they understand that the local level is extremely important in this process, even though we're talking about state funding. So we've got to make sure they understand that. So where we are today, if you'll go on to the next slide, in terms of our landscape, what has happened is since 1987, which was the last time there was really any major change in how transportation infrastructure, primarily at the state level, mind you, but this is where the dollars would come from to fund transportation. There has only been a 1.6% growth in the number of gallons that we're selling of gasoline across the state of Mississippi. So basically, it's almost flatlined since that last change in any type of revenue increase went into place. While at the same time, the number of vehicles that are on the road has increased by 17%, and the amount of vehicle miles traveled has increased by 90%. Now, why you say, well, there's more cars, they're traveling more, why is there not? Well, fuel efficiency is the biggest thing, no doubt about it. I mean, those numbers, those fuel efficiency standards continue to rise, and if we don't address this today in some fashion of how we put this in place, we're going to continue to see this type of really major decline in the amount of revenue that's coming in for transportation. And the next slide will show you we're just continuing to fall behind because the costs continue to rise. In fact, over that same period, since 1987, inflation has increased by 108%, while the construction cost, the producer price index, which is what measures construction costs, has increased by 217%. So, I'm not a mathematical genius, but I'm smart enough to understand that you can't have costs rising at those two rates and revenue rising at 1.6% and you're going to keep up. It just isn't going to happen. And that's part of the reason that we basically have little less than half the buying power today with the same revenue that's coming in. At the same time, other states have been taking action. And in fact, since 2012, 23 states have done something to increase year-over-year revenue for transportation. And in 2015, there were a total of 9 states that took action, and 8 of them increased their gasoline excise tax, 6 of them increased license plate fees, and most everybody did it. Now you want to know, okay, what state didn't do it? Well, most of y'all probably know my boss, Blake Wilson, right? And he's from Delaware. Delaware was the only state that increased revenue without increasing the gas tax. You know why? They were still able to put a toll on their 11 miles of interstate back when it was allowed. We can't put a toll on interstates in the South, but back then they could put it and they've been able to keep it. They just raised their toll. In fact, he was telling us this morning that going in and out of Pennsylvania, it's like $7 to cross the state line on that interstate right there. So, I mean, that's how they're able to do it. We don't have that option in Mississippi, so we have to look for other ways to do it. So, what is the next step? Well, once we got all of this information together, we compiled it, and we had put together what was a 42-page report that kind of outlined how we got to where we are, what we need, what are our funding options, and why we have to do this. In the Blueprint Mississippi study, we developed an initiative called Accelerate Mississippi. Now, Accelerate Mississippi is designed to be the mechanism that we use to really go out and market it. Last week, we held our Capitol Day event on Thursday, which is our legislative reception. We had sessions that morning, and we rolled out some more information about this, but we really started a very, very strong marketing campaign. In fact, we had radio ads running Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday leading up to Cap Day that specifically had our chair of our task force, Joe Sanderson Jr. of Sanderson Farms, quoted as saying, we've got to do something because our roads and bridges are crumbling at both the state and local level. We rolled out an ad in the Clarion Ledger that Thursday morning that detailed what the problem was and why it was so important to fix this and what would happen if we would go ahead and make this happen. So really, Accelerate Mississippi is designed to be that initiative. As you can see up there, there's a separate website that's been created called acceleratems.com. I encourage you to go to it. You can download both of the report, the study itself, the 42-page study that really highlights and outlines the issue, how we got there, what the solutions are. All of the solutions are listed in that program. And then the Accelerate, there's also an overview report called Accelerate Mississippi, which is an 8-page, easy-to-read report that kind of defines what will happen if we can get this done. Now, I'm sure most of y'all have seen the numbers. We're saying that we need to raise $375 million additional dollars annually if we're going to have any impact. And I also know that y'all have seen the numbers of the split of 80-20, 80 to the state and 20 to the locals. Now, I will tell you, this does not fully fund transportation. This is not fully funded at the state level. It doesn't come anywhere close to funding it at the local level. We understand that, but we've got to start somewhere. We've got to take the first step in order to make sure that there's additional dollars coming to the local entities to have money to get started on some of these worst of the worst issues that you face in transportation. Because the bottom line is that every Mississippian deserves a transportation system that's safe and reliable. And what Accelerate Mississippi did is focused on common sense solutions to make sure that we are creating real jobs, real opportunities, and protecting all Mississippians. That is what we have to do. Is it perfect? No. Is it a great start? We believe it is. And I think working together, we can actually make this happen, and we can see a big, big difference in what we're doing to improve transportation at both the state and the local levels. So with that, I will close. I'm willing to take any questions. I will try to answer anything. If I can't answer it, I'll be honest with you, and I will get you the answer. But I want to appreciate, again, I appreciate everything that you all did to help us get to the point of being able to tell the story at the local level of what's out there. But more importantly, I encourage you and I ask you to please work with us as we support this initiative to make this happen and get to a point where we're taking a step in the right direction. Again, is this the end-all be-all? No. But do we have to do this to get started? Without a doubt we do. And without a doubt it has to include the support of all of those involved so that we understand why we have to make sure that the local level is part of the process. So with that, I'll see if there's any questions. Yes, sir.
Yeah. How about the statewide lottery system? That might raise a lot of money.
Well, I was in Florida last night, and I will assure you that they're kind of going crazy right now with the what is up to today, 1.5 billion. Well, actually, if we could just get the winning lottery ticket, that would solve a lot of our problems. We just put it all in maybe that's what we should have done. You know, I think that's, you know, again, you know, that is where, you know, while we understand that, we also wanted to take a look at what were the real things that we could do from a kind of most of these solutions that we came up with, have those using the system paying for the system. And I think that's probably, well, you're talking about more taxes any way you look at it. We, you know, we boiled it down based on the number of registered vehicles across the state, based on the research that the Stennis Institute did for us, and we have actually been marketing this as it's 37 cents a day is what the cost will be to get to this point. And so regardless of what you've got to do, there's going to have to be an increase in revenue. I was talking with Mayor Knox outside before we came in about how, you know, there's a lot of legislatures. Can we shift some money around? Can we do some things differently? You know, I think if it were that simple, we would have done it by now. Not to say there aren't some ways that we can maybe package this together. And that's what instead of coming up with a specific solution that said we need to do X, Y, and Z, and that's the only thing we can do, our task force made a decision that we wanted to lay out all of the funding options, funding solutions, and let the legislature and work with them and hopefully be part of the conversation to make sure that they understood, here's the options that we've studied, here's the options that we are 100% comfortable in the recommendations of saying, we know for every penny that you raise the gas tax, that's $21 million that's going to come into the state. Or for every $10 that you raise a license fee, that's $27 million that's going to come into the state. Now, every one of those are taxes increases, and we understand that. But there's really, if we're going to fund this vital part of government, that's really the only option that we have.
Well over 70% of the roads in Mississippi are either county or municipal, is it political as why you're recommending 80% for the state roads?
No, sir, it's not political. It has to do with a variety of things. One, the cost of roads at that level are more expensive. There's no, I mean, and again, you know, Sherry was there every task force meeting we had, and we discussed this for months. This wasn't just we didn't just pull this out of the air. There was a lot of research behind it. Number two is the amount of traffic that's on the state roads. 90% of all commercial traffic travels to state roads. 60% of all traffic travels to state roads, and those who commute to and from work, about 80% of those travel to state roads. So there's several factors that went involved in it. And then secondly, we looked at what can we currently define as the money that is going to the local level that is specifically for road and bridge repair. And now, when I say that, when I'm talking about that, I'm talking about state dollars, because primarily what you as mayors have to deal with is there's a sales tax diversion for y'all to pay for your roads and transportation. We understand that. On the county level, it's an ad valorem tax. The ad valorem taxes is what's used. So we looked at how much money is coming from the state right now. And Sherry, correct me if I'm wrong, but the state dollars from the gas tax, the cities get about $1.5 million total, $1.5 million. Under this plan, they would get $37.5 million. So a large, large increase. And if you look at it, if you combine the two together and you look at the programs that currently exist, that we can specifically pinpoint those dollars are going for road and bridge repair, is through the Office of State Aid and the Local System Bridge Program, which currently is funded at about $72 million. So you're talking about a doubling of state dollars that's going back down to the local communities specified for road and bridge repair. And that's one thing that our report recommends, is that it has to be for road and bridge repair, and there has to be an accountability system to make sure the money is spent on road and bridge repair. So in reality, at the local level, we're more than doubling the amount of money that's currently dedicated to that. But for the cities, you're going from 1.5 to 37.5. So while the numbers seem somewhat out of balance, in reality, it is a fairly large increase compared to what we have today going to that particular part of the planning. So
To be clear, that 37.5 is city and county?
no, the 37.5 would be for the cities and another 37.5 for the county. 75 million total. So we'd take the 75 and basically it's 80-10-10 is the easiest way to think about it. And 10% of the 375 million is 37.5.
I think we have one question over here first.
Yeah.
What I would like to know is how much money did you take in to get it up to 87 standard? And also, you said that the city would be getting 5% of the amount, 300 million.
It's 10% of the 375 is what would come to the cities. 10%. Right. It's an 80-20 in our recommendation, and then the 20% is split 50-50 or 10 each to the cities and the counties. This is the number that will get us back to the 87. This is the number. The bottom line number for the state system was $300 million, and that is to take care of those roads that need major or minor rehabilitation, as well as start the preventive maintenance program that we don't find ourselves back in this state again. And one of the other things that we talked about making sure happens, and one of the strong recommendations was indexing this. As you may have seen a minute ago when I was talking about that it had only grown 1.6% since '87 in terms of the revenue coming in. If you had just indexed to the consumer price index over the last 10 years, there would be another $100 million coming in right now, about 12 more cents a gallon that you would have seen, I'm sorry, I take that back, six more cents a gallon. It would have really, if you had done it all the way back to 1987, you're talking about just to keep up with inflation, the gas tax would need to be 19 cents higher than what it is right now, almost doubling. So what we wanted to do is we knew that was not realistic. So we said, what are the minimum things that we can do to make sure we're protecting this investment? Now, you may remember in '87, they raised it 5 cents, and that was a big, big deal. Well, that 5 cents led to a $3.8 billion investment in our 4-lane system. So if we don't protect that, we're throwing a $3.8 million investment out the window. That's why it's so important, and that's the reason, as you say, how do we get back up to 87 standards? This is what gets us back there. Yes?
Yes. Will the money, the 10% that the municipalities get, will it be in legislation going directly to the municipality, or will it go to the county, or the county to disperse it to the municipality?
It is the recommendation of the task force. Now, we are working currently with the legislature to write the legislation, but the recommendation of the task force is that money would go directly to the cities, but it would be specifically for road and bridge repair. But there would not be a step process. It wouldn't go through the counties first and get to you. It would go straight to you, as opposed to having one step added to the process. And sometimes you have to even get, you may never be able to get them there because Joe Sanderson, who was our chair, talked about that when he was, as you know, they have a huge, huge presence in the state, but they're all over the South. They were opening a facility near College Station, Texas, Bryan, Texas. He actually flew out unannounced and rode the roads first. And we see that that's why it's so important. We've got to be addressing this from an economic standpoint. There's so many facets. It's safety, it's economics, and we got to make sure that people understand that. I mean, the schools understand it. I mean, think about the buses that have to be either rerouted or can't use certain bridges because they can't carry the load. I mean, there's so much to this that it truly is. We've used the terminology the last year or so that, you know, you think about when you come to transportation, it's all engineering, road building, and all that. No, this is really a kitchen table issue. It's an issue that affects every Mississippian, which is why I said earlier, that's why it's so important that we have a system that's safe and reliable going forward.
Can we maybe do one more?
You bet.
Two more.
Two more.
Two more.
Well, we're still looking at it, but everybody would get it. The recommendation of the board, and again, as we work with legislators, we will tell them would be based on two factors. One, the population of the city versus the municipal population of the state as a whole, and the road miles of the city based on the municipal road miles as a whole. So there would be something coming to every one. Now, you know, that would really depend on the population and the.
One more.
Is this a percent per gallon or a flat cents per gallon?
This is a list of recommendations that we did not give them a specific recommendation. What we did say is if right now it's the flat tax per gallon is 18, or the tax per gallon is 18 cents a gallon, regardless of what the price of gas is.
That's what happened in 1987. We put 8% per gallon.
Right.
And look at the inflation, we would have kept up with it.
Right. So what we did is we also, one of the recommendation looks at putting a percentage, kind of we never really know other way to call it, but a sales tax on gasoline, and what that would raise. The only real downside of that is somewhat volatile based on the price of gasoline, because when gasoline was $2.75 a gallon, you were getting a lot more than what you're getting a day. I mean, I spent $1.60 not too long ago for gas. So, right. That could be an inflationary. It's almost a combination of the two that could be, because I don't think we're going to. It's definitely not our recommendation to lower the current, tax per gallon. But there's one of the options that was presented. One of the solutions we asked them to look at would be if you put that percent tax back onto the gasoline. So, is that it? Well, again, thank you very much. I really appreciate y'all allowing me to come and share this with you. I appreciate the support that y'all have given us in this process. We're getting the ball down the field. We're nearing the goal line. We just got to get it across the goal line this session, and I assure you that MEC will work every single day of the session to make sure that happens. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Scott. We're going to wrap up. One thing we'd like to say, and I hope I speak for these others, is sure, we'd like to have more. We'd all like more for our communities, but please support this and encourage everybody to be positive about it. Let's don't, as a league, don't be complaining that it's not enough. Let's take what we can get for now and keep fighting, because you know what the fight is. You know the fights we've had for years. And so if we can get something out of it, let's push for something out of it, but let's just not be real negative about it's not enough. Because as I got, in this duty, you get quoted sometimes, and as I said, it's more than we got last year. So I'd be glad to have it. Yes, I'd love to have more.